I want you to picture this: a quiet workshop, the air smelling of metal and a little bit of old oil, and wires and screws and sketches on the table. Light filters through the dust, and I'm standing there, holding the first prosthetic limb that was once meant to change a person's life. I look at it and think, everyone said it was impossible. Everyone laughed when I started. But I saw more than just an arm or a leg. I saw a life that could be reclaimed. My name is not important. What is important is what I felt at that time: disappointment, doubts, but at the same time an incredible fire in my heart. That was the moment when I decided, I will not give up, even if the whole world screams that it is impossible. I saw friends and family losing hope, patients looking at me with eyes full of fear and sadness. And I promised myself, I will give them a chance at a new life. At first, there was just a small desire to create a prosthesis that actually worked. But the reality was cruel. Everyone said, it's expensive. It's impossible. Who would let you do this? I had limited resources, a small lab, and a lot of skepticism around me. My first prototypes broke, wires got tangled, electronics wouldn't work, and patients lost patience. And that was the first time I felt that the world could throw a wrench in your plans just when you were trying the hardest. Investors were turning you down, colleagues were laughing, mentors were shaking their heads, and my own heart was telling me, this isn't the end, this is the beginning. I remember the first moment someone believed in me. It was a little girl who had lost her arm, and her eyes, full of sadness and hope, met mine. I gave her the first prosthetic that worked at least a little. She smiled, and that became my fuel. A small victory among 1,000 failures. And then I realized, if I can give someone hope, I can change the world. This is a story not just about technology or business. It's a story about us, about our fears, our defeats, our victories. And if you listen to me now, I promise, there will be more to come. You will see how a small idea, born in a dark corner of a workshop, will turn into a global revolution in people's lives. And you will feel that the impossible becomes possible if you believe and don't give up. I remember the day everything changed. I lost my arm in an accident, and the world around me suddenly became strange and silent. That sound of metal clanking under the wheels of the car is still in my memory. It became my own scar, my silence, and my motivation at the same time. I looked at myself in the mirror, at my empty shoulder, and thought, how am I going to live on? How can I take charge of my life when I can't take charge of my own things? At first, there was a desperate desire to simply regain control. But when I started looking for prosthetics, I realized the terrible truth. They were uncomfortable, limiting, cold. I immediately thought, why doesn't anyone create something better? Doesn't anyone see the pain of those who have lost themselves physically? And then I decided, if the world doesn't give me a solution, I'll make one myself. My first attempt was a disaster. I collected old parts, wires, motors, and sensors, and tried to create something that even remotely resembled a hand. I stood in the workshop at night, listening to the roar of small motors, the smell of the soldering iron burning my nose, and the metal fragments lying on the table, like a warning. This is not for you. And it was scary, because each attempt ended in pain. Either the part broke, or the electronics burned out, or I simply paid with my own body for trying to move. Colleagues, friends, even family said, maybe it's better to accept? It's impossible. I heard this and felt anger and powerlessness rise inside me. Each of their skepticism was like an additional loss, another piece of hope that I started writing down everything. Mistakes, small successes, ideas that came to my mind in the middle of the night. I felt like an engineer, a patient, and an experimenter all at once. And most importantly, I saw in the mirror a hand that didn't exist yet, but could exist if I didn't give up. My first real crisis came when my prosthetic leg, which I had been working on for months, broke while I was demoing it for a potential investor. They laughed. I wanted to hide. But then I realized, fear and shame are also materials from which you can create something strong. I picked up the pieces, looked at the people in the room, and said, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." And that was when my first victory was born, not a technical one, but an inner one. I felt that my body and my mind could be a driving force, that the pain I had experienced could become a strength for others. The small steps, the failed prosthetics, the late-night attempts, all of this became the foundation of what would later become a revolution. It was the moment I realized that the real battle is not with metal and wires, but with doubts, fears, and my own body. And if I can win here, I can win anywhere. After that terrible failure at the demonstration, I was left alone in the workshop. Only the sound of my footsteps on the wooden floor, the soft hum of the old lamps, and the smell of metal around me. I looked at the fragments of the prosthesis lying on the table and thought, anything is still possible. I just haven't found the right one yet. For the next few weeks, I worked without sleep. I soldered wires, adjusted sensors, felt my own muscle impulses, and tried to make the metal obey my brain. And one morning the unthinkable happened. The little motor stopped, but the hand moved. It was a tiny movement, barely noticeable, but to me it meant everything. I stood there, sweaty, tired, and just laughing. For the first time in months, I felt like I was going in the right direction. The first patient to agree to try the new prosthesis was also a small miracle. His face, full of fear and doubt, suddenly lit up when he was able to raise his hand and take a cup of tea. I remember that moment, the sound of metal, softly creaking as his fingers squeezed the cup, and the laughter that burst from his chest. It was the first time I realized my efforts were not in vain. Another small victory came when I was able to implement simple sensors that sensed nerve impulses. The hand responded to the brain as if it were part of the body again. I could feel my heart beating faster, how each small step forward charged me with an energy that cannot be described in words. But not everything was easy. Part of the team began to lose patience. The engineers had doubts, the doctors set conditions, and I myself felt pain in my shoulder where my arm had once been. Often at night, I cried from the powerless attempts, from the fact that the metal and electronics did not obey. And yet I continued, because every small victory is like a light in the darkness. That's when I realized the main thing. Small steps forward create big changes. Every mistake, every sleepless night, every skepticism, all this became my fuel. I learned to rejoice in the little things. The first movement of a finger, the first object lifted, the first smile of a patient. These little things turned into real victories. And then I realized that the real fight is not just about technology. It's about trust, about hope, about the belief that you can create something more than just a mechanical arm. I realized that my body is my school, and pain is my best teacher. And if I go through it, I can give others what I once lost. All this time I felt that we were standing on the threshold of something greater. We took the first steps, but the world needed more, and I needed challenges that make the heart beat faster. And then I met them, those people who changed everything. The first is a young genius programmer who saw brain movements as lines of code. He could create an algorithm that allowed the prosthesis to respond to the most subtle impulses, almost like a real hand. The second is an investor who risked his own resources when most said, "It's impossible." And the third is a skeptical mentor who doubted me for a long time, but who taught me one valuable lesson. Don't just make a prosthesis. Become part of the body, part of the person's life. We started working together. The laboratory turned into a real center of experiments. The roar of motors, the smell of soldering iron and metal, the rustle of wires and sensors. All this became music that sounded in the rhythm of our enthusiasm. We tried new materials, sensors, neuroprostheses. And one day the unthinkable happened. The first fully integrated bionic prosthesis that sensed nerve impulses raised the patient's hand as a real limb would. But the breakthrough didn't come easily. Part of the team was ready to panic when the system crashed. Investors were nervous. Competitors tried to copy our technology. We were risking not only money but also our reputation, and my own body reminded me every day of the loss I had experienced. Every crash felt like a blow to the heart. And then I did something that changed everything. I allowed myself to trust the team, to take a risk, to go beyond safety. We did a demonstration for doctors and patients, and when the prosthesis raised its arm in coordination for the first time, I saw tears in people's eyes. I felt their faith, their hope, and it was stronger than any doubt. This great transformation showed me the most important thing. Innovation is born not only from ideas, but from faith in people, from a willingness to take risks and accept mistakes. Every failure, every sleepless night, every moment of fear, all this became the fuel for our breakthrough. We didn't just create a prosthesis. We created a life that became possible again. And that's when I realized that true success comes when you bring your pain, your loss, and your dreams together with a team of like-minded people. This wasn't just a victory for science. This was a victory for the human spirit. We were standing on the threshold of what we had only dreamed of in a dark workshop. The world saw our prosthesis for the first time at an international conference. The roar of cameras, the flashes of lights, the rustle of costumes and reporters' notes. I felt both happy and terribly vulnerable. All eyes were on us, and I knew one wrong move, and everything could collapse. The first patient to enter the stage held a tiny child in his arms. His eyes, full of sadness and hope, met mine. I felt my heart clench. And then a miracle happened. The prosthesis completely reproduced the movements of the hand. He picked up the child, hugged her, and the hall exploded with applause. This was the moment when all our sleepless nights, all our broken prostheses, all our doubts and fears turned into victory. But victory didn't come without a fight. Competitors tried to copy the technology, investors pushed the pace, regulators made impossible demands, and my team was exhausted. Every day I felt morale plummet, and despair threatened to consume us all. Every decision was a dramatic risk. One wrong move could destroy our breakthrough. I remember the night before the big presentation when we tested the system for the last time. The lab was empty, just the sound of the fans and my own heart. I looked at the hand that had once been just a dream of mine, and I thought, if we do this, we'll change the world. If we don't, I'll see defeat again. And then I pressed the button, and the prosthesis came to life like a real hand. I felt a slight flutter in my chest, tears in my eyes, and joy that was beating over the edge. This global breakthrough showed me the main thing. True revolution is born on the edge of fear, when you take risks, trust your team, and believe in what you are doing. We didn't just create a prosthesis, we created new hope for people around the world. And it was in that moment that I realized that the pain I experienced when I lost my hand became my superpower. Every sleepless night, every skepticism, every moment of fear, it all led to this moment. We changed not only science, but also people's lives, and I realized true success is courage and belief in the impossible. We had made a global breakthrough, but the real challenges were just beginning. The technology we had created was spreading rapidly around the world, and new challenges arose. How did we scale it? How did we ensure that every patient received the quality we promised? How did we stay in control when competitors tried to copy our every move? We built factories, launched new production lines. The roar of machines, the smell of hot metal and oil, tons of sensors and mechanics. All this became part of my reality. I saw our prostheses go out into the world, how people who had lost hope again hold a cup, take a child in their arms, play the piano. And at the same time, I felt the pressure. Any mistake could be a disaster. Another challenge was added: ethics. People were afraid of bionics. Some said, what if we replace humans with machines? Others asked, who will have access to such technologies and who will not? I saw the fear in their eyes and felt my responsibility. I had to balance scientific progress with human doubts, between ambition and moral constraints. Sometimes at night, I would sit in an empty lab, look at my prosthesis, and think, is it worth all this pressure, all these mistakes, all these critics? I would feel tired, and the pain of my lost arm would come back to me every night. But I would see patients walking toward a new life, and I would understand. We are doing more than just mechanics. We are giving hope. Another challenge came from the team. People were getting exhausted, internal conflicts were growing. Engineers were arguing about priorities, marketers were pushing for deadlines, and I had to balance all these stressors. I learned to listen, understand, and make difficult decisions. Sometimes I took risks, took unusual steps, and only because of that did we move forward. I learned the most important thing. Scaling is not just about more machines. It's about more responsibility, more attention to detail, more understanding of people. And that's where I learned to turn crisis into fuel. Every difficulty, every fear, every challenge became a new force for our movement. Now I see that today's challenges are not just obstacles. They test your faith, your ability to lead a team, your willingness to take responsibility. And I know that if we can get through this, we can change even more lives. I never thought my body and my heart could be so exhausted at the same time. Every day I saw people gain arms, legs, the opportunity to live anew, while inside me, fatigue, pain, and doubts grew. I lost a friend who had worked with me from the very beginning. He left due to constant pressure and conflict. Losing him was a blow to me, and a reminder that even those close to me can break, and I must hold on. At night, I was left alone in the lab. Only the sound of fans, the soft rustle of wires, the flickering of monitors. I looked at myself in the mirror, at my empty shoulder, and thought, is it all worth it? Can I still move forward? My heart felt tired more than any pain from the lost arm. And then something happened that changed everything. I met a boy who had never been able to hold a pencil because his hand wouldn't obey. He looked at me, and in his eyes there was the same loneliness and fear that I had once felt. I felt, if I couldn't get through my own pain, I wouldn't be able to help him. This meeting was a turning point. I realized that true strength is born in the darkness, when you feel tired, when everything seems lost, but you keep going. I allowed myself to feel sadness, but I didn't let it stop me. I rebuilt the team. We reviewed approaches, improved technology, learned to communicate and support each other. Personal drama taught me the most important thing. Your pain can become fuel for change. Loss of loved ones, doubts, your own fears. None of this will stop you if you find inner strength. And I realized, a real breakthrough is not only in technique, but in the ability to hold on when everything seems to be falling apart. I see now, those lonely nights, those teardrops, those moments when I wanted to give up, they were my most valuable lessons. They prepared me for the next step. The moment when the world would see that the bionic revolution could change the lives of millions of people. Today I stand and look at the world we have created. Our prosthetics are no longer a rarity in hospitals or private clinics. They are in schools, in the homes of people who once thought their lives were limited. I see people picking up a pen for the first time in years, playing guitar, hugging children. And I understand. This was made possible by every sleepless night, every tear, every failure. I see patients every day. Some cry with joy when they hold a cup of tea for the first time. Some laugh when they hold their friend's hand, but they couldn't do it before. These moments are my little celebrations, my reward, my energy to move on. I feel like my losses, my fears, and my pain have become part of something bigger than myself. But today is not only about joy. It is also about new challenges. Technologies are developing. The world is setting new standards. Competition is fierce, and ethical issues are even more complex. We are constantly looking for a balance between progress and responsibility. Every decision is important because it can change the lives of hundreds, thousands of people. I look at the team, the people who have walked this path with me. Their eyes shine with faith, just as mine once did. Together, we are creating a future where bionic technology will be accessible to everyone, and the loss of a limb will not mean the loss of a life. And I know that our work is not done yet, but what we have done today is already a change that the world is experiencing. I understood the main thing. If you believe, take risks, and don't give up, you can turn pain into opportunity, loss into strength, darkness into light. Today, we don't just give a hand, we give hope. And this is the greatest victory.